Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. All right, 12 o'clock, and we've got about a dozen people online, so we can go ahead and start to get started. Welcome to the Plant Mapping Meetup, August 2025. So if you have not already filled out the survey, please scan that QR code or click the link in the chat. Go ahead and click next, so see the link in the chat. It's going to listen to me. There we go. All right, so the agenda for today is, of course, the sign-in, which I've just instructed. We have our statement of purpose, some leadership updates, mentorship program updates, a tech tip, APGA conference in review, show and tell with our lovely guests, Q&A, upcoming dates, and open conversation. So our statement of purpose here in the Plant Mapping Group is a community for all plant mapping professionals, regardless of industry. We discuss content, software, or methodology, and share innovative solutions. So for our leadership updates, I don't know why it's doing an animation. There we go. We've done a little swap. A quote from Jamie is, "I have graciously agreed to swap with her so she could focus on other endeavors," and that the whole leadership team is wholeheartedly agreed to this. And she will continue serving as the vice chair until someone expresses interest in filling the role. That said, I'd like to add, I look forward to doing my best, and I thank you for your support. And I encourage anyone that's interested in leadership to please reach out to us. Other members of leadership is Carolyn Miller, John Chow, and Laura Netson-Murray. I'll give you guys a few more moments if you want to read this. All right, mentorship program. Let's go ahead and turn it over to John. John, are you here? Should we return that to the end of the talk? Is John maybe not in yet?
He's here, but muted.
Oh.
I
John,
see you,
can
John.
you hear us?
Just unmute.
Hello, hi.
Sorry,
Hi,
take it away.
Thank you to everyone who's already signed up for the mentorship program. We have 11 people now. And if you have other colleagues who you feel like would benefit from getting matched with a mentor, or if you yourself want to, please sign up. And I will work on making the matches and sending out an email so you can start communicating with your partner in the next month or so. Thank you.
All right, and next we have tech tip. So something to share, just quick 30 seconds of your time. Color Brewer 2.0. If you haven't heard of this, it is a great tool you can use to help pick some colors for your type of data. You can choose the number of classes, the type of data, is it qualitative, sequential, and you can select things like colorblind safe, print friendly, photocopy safe, etc. So colorbrewer2.org, feel free to play around with it if you're so inclined. And then I believe this is you, Laura?
Yes. So at APGA this last summer, we were able to get a group together from the Plant Map group. So thank you again to John Chow, Rowan Blake, Nick Krivich, Jenna Portanova, and Greg Payton for putting together such an engaging session at the conference. As you can see from the photo, it was very well attended. Next slide. So the presentation was called Digital Maps for Public Gardens, How to Start, Where to Learn More, and Examples for What is Possible. There was a lot covered. It was a 90-minute session, so I added a QR code in the bottom there to just a brief summary that I put together, and it also has the resources that we handed out, which is also in the Google group. But just if you weren't able to attend, there's a summary for you of what was covered. And just if anyone wants to start a thread for APGA 2026, doing a GIS presentation, we'd love to get a group talking about it, at least doing another submission. So that is all I have for this. And our presentation today is from NatureServe. Our speakers will talk about how their organization and their partners utilize the power of geospatial data to prevent extinction events and further in the field of plant conservation. So we have two speakers today. Whitney Weber has served NatureServe and the NatureServe Network as a GIS and database geek for 25 years. Prior to that, she chased animals in the wild, oftentimes with the GPS in hand. And Amanda Eberly has been at NatureServe as a botanist for over 10 years. She leads a skilled team of botanists and data managers to curate and develop botanical data for the US and Canada. And while she's immersed in data day by day, she likes to spend her off hours documenting biodiversity in her neighborhood and beyond on iNaturalist. So we're so excited to have them present, and I will turn the controls over to the two of you. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you for having us. And it looks like, Whitney, you have the screen share up. Okay, so I'm going to start off. Thank you again for the introduction. Whitney and I would like to introduce NatureServe, discuss some mapping tools that facilitate standardized and high-quality data collection, and highlight how it impacts the work of the NatureServe botany team in our mission to maintain conservation status data for plants. So let's start by introducing NatureServe. NatureServe has been guiding biodiversity, conservation, and stewardship using the power of science, data, and technology for over 50 years. Whitney and I have been at NatureServe for some time, Whitney for over 20 years, myself for over 10, and we're proud to be immersed in this work. And we both play a role in developing, nurturing, and advancing tools supporting our methods and our mission. NatureServe represents a network, the NatureServe Network, that has over 60 programs across the US and Canada. And you may recognize some of these from the state where you sit. So I'm in Maryland, and we have the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Right out of college, and actually during college, my very first job and internship was at the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program. And Whitney spent 3 years before coming to NatureServe at the Montana program. And so a lot of the folks in our network or at NatureServe have a long history of being part of the network. And our network is linked through our shared goals and through shared methods. Our methods have been evolving and in use since 1978. And these methods span data collection, data management, and data interpretation for species and ecosystems. And our data answer 3 questions. What is it? Where is it? And how is it doing? And we ask these questions at different scales. So at the occurrence level, at the species level, at the ecosystem level, and even at a high level of biodiversity and how it's doing for our nation and in the world. NatureServe and the network are collecting and maintaining data for over 100,000 species and ecosystems, and that includes over 1.3 million documented locations for species and ecosystems. The aggregate of this data has told us that over a third of our plants, 40% of animals, and 41% of ecosystems are at risk in the United States. So our data enable partners to take action and direct their actions for the greatest impact. So a core tool for doing this are our conservation status assessments. They're a big part of our mission and underlie many of our products. They're essential for prioritizing species from the state and province level all the way up to global efforts. And the conservation status assessment is a process, and that process evaluates the potential risk of extinction for a species or the risk of collapse for an ecosystem, considering 3 different elements: rarity, threats, and trends. And these can be applied at the global, national, or subnational scale. And the result of the conservation status assessment is a conservation status rank. It describes the geographic area. So on the left side, you'll see GX, GXH, and then a numerical scale from G1 to G5. The G is indicating that this is a global assessment, but we also do national, and those would start with N, and subnational, which would start with S, assessments. And these are all combined with a numerical scale from 1 to 5, 1 indicating critically imperiled and 5 being secure. And the rank can also show if a species is extinct, possibly extinct, unrankable, or not ranked. And we have this paired up against the IUCN Red List categories here. They have a very similar outcome to the process, but there are differences between the 2 methods and how data are interpreted in the process. So due to NatureServe's long-term presence in the US and Canada, some groups, like vascular plants, have nearly complete global rank assessments that have been completed. And that allows us to do some really interesting analyses at larger scales. So for example, in the 2022 Biodiversity in Focus report, it was found that 34% of plants in the United States are at risk of extinction. If you're interested in learning more, the URL for that report is on the screen. So global ranks are important for setting priorities for conservation action, but they rely on high quality data collected in the field. This foundational set of data answers questions of what, where, and how at a fine scale, geographically and taxonomically. So Whitney is going to share some of our tools that support high quality data collection to answer these fundamental questions.
Okay, so thanks, Amanda. I'm just going to go over the observations life cycle, which began with the development of a comprehensive set of biodiversity observation data fields. This was developed between NatureServe and the network members, a working group of that of those people. And we developed these observation data fields to make sure that they were compatible not only with our own data schema, but interoperable with Darwin Core, in case you're familiar with that schema. The schema supports the network products as well as conservation status assessments and quality and condition assessments. So that's what we were focused on when developing that data standard. Once we developed the standard, we used it to build the observation survey. So that's the basis for the observation survey, which was built in Survey 123, which we used to collect data. You might wonder, what is the survey? Well, it's just a field tool for collecting data. We're leveraging existing applications, including Survey 123, to do that. As I said, it is based on that biodiversity observation data standard, and as such is compatible with our schemas and supports our priority products. It is administered by each of the individual state programs. So NatureServe doesn't have one big observation survey. Each of the programs has their own observation survey so that they can customize it and administer it themselves to determine who has access, etc. So I'll go ahead and jump into a demo. I have two different QR codes here. We have the fungal observations, which is more specific, or you can look at the more generic observations survey. The fungal observations is just going to have some more information specific to fungi. Survey 123 is customizable. It can be used on smartphones, tablets, your laptop, etc. And one of the bonuses of Survey 123, as opposed to field maps, is that it does allow data entry by anonymous user. And by that, I mean people without an ArcGIS Online user account. And this is really important so that other people can contribute valuable data to us. It is also available for use both online and offline. So let me try to find my survey, and maybe I should. So here's the survey, and that's probably going to be distracting. So maybe I'll end the slideshow while I do the survey demo, so that's not as distracting in the background. So I'm just going to do a quick search. Here are my fungal observations, and I'll collect data. And it sounds like a lot of you are probably very familiar with Survey 123. We're using a lot of logic to limit the questions to as appropriate. So let's just use the fungus for our first example, and we can scroll down. We're gathering some more information about that. You can view that in Explorer. So if we click on that link, it's going to pull us into NatureServe Explorer so we can get some more information regarding that species. We also have the information about the ranking and the track status. We collect information regarding condition, and then some mapping. Not all of our mapping concepts are familiar with everybody, so we've included little images to give a better description of that. So what is the size of what you observed? In this case, I'm just going to say it's a small area, and it is estimated because I'm using a GPS. I also have an image of our definitions for that locational uncertainty type too. And then, of course, it's going to automatically recognize my location, which I could go in and change. We do, I would just like to point out, we do have other options too. So we have kind of hijacked Survey 123 to have points, lines, and polygons within the same survey, because that's really critical for our methodology. And so I can also, within the same survey, map a polygon or a line. I give the option for polygons and lines to either sketch or track. So we can go in and sketch a polygon, or we could use tracking to have that automatically go in, and I'll say home is where the heart is. So if we track that, then it will automatically record our location by tracking where we're going and define the area by where we're walking. Who visited it, when it was visited, whether or not it was detected. If a voucher specimen was collected, we collect some additional information, which will then be used in the auto-generated specimen label. We also have information regarding the reproduction, etc. And this is specific to the type of fungus that is being collected. And so you can see there's a lot of different information that is collected via the survey. If we go up and change that, we can change that to a different species. Maybe we'll go to polypore. When we come down here, we will get different questions regarding polypores. So we have a perennial polypore, so we can add additional information regarding the fruiting body, etc. So that's just a quick demo of this fungal observation. This fungal observation is actually built on using that same observation, biodiversity observation data standard. We're just showing different fields specific to fungi than for animals or vascular plants. Okay. So I'll go ahead and return to the presentation at this point. Now that we have collected data out in the field using that survey, of course, we need to communicate it because it's no good if it just stays in the box, right? So we have developed 3 different dashboards to help communicate that data. Again, we're leveraging existing software, including ArcGIS Map Viewer, Dashboard, and Web App Builder. And again, the dashboards can be customized, administered, and maintained by each program. We've developed 3 different versions of the dashboard, which, kind of depends on each program's workflow, whether they use all 3. But the first and most important one is for viewing the data only. So this can be used to share the data with the higher ups or with your public, and so you can enable them to view the data. We also have a QC dashboard, which exposes quality control fields and only allows the user to edit those quality control fields. And thirdly, we have an edit dashboard, which is meant more for the data manager and the scientists themselves who are collecting data in the field to have full edit capability to that survey response. So I'll go ahead and quickly demo the dashboard again. So if I go back over to let's see, where am I? Here we go. If we go to, oh, I think I might be looking at the wrong dashboard. Nope, I'm looking at the right dashboard. I was just signed into somebody else's organization earlier, so it confused it. So here we have the edit dashboard. And it allows us to filter the data by the observer, scientific name, common name, visit date. So I'll go ahead and use Lisa. We recently did a training in West Virginia with a number of our programs, and Lisa from Maryland was one of the trainees. So if we look at one of these, it will zoom into that survey record and then expose the survey response over here on the right. If there were any photos or recordings associated with that record, then we could also look at those. You can see they're stacked here under the map. I can't remember if this record has any or not. I didn't look at this beforehand. And of course, it always takes that survey a second to pull up, which is why we require you to select one of these before pulling up that survey. So you'll notice we have this little edit icon in the right, which indicates that this data can be edited. So we can go in and edit any of that. So if they come in from the field and want to add more information, or they notice some typos, they can go ahead and do that. It looks like there's one photo here. We could see it here, but we can also come over here and see that. Recordings come into play more for animals, obviously, to record bird song or or a frog chorus. And so there we have that information so that you can use the dashboard to more easily view QC and edit that data. Returning back to the presentation. Then, after we have collected the data, we've edited it and QC'd it, then we want to download it. And we can, I've kind of highlighted this for providing observations to the Heritage Program, so that if you want to collect data and provide it to the Heritage Programs, you could. We have a separate toolbox within ArcGIS Pro. It's a custom Python toolbox. And that toolbox is for our non-network users. And what it does is it downloads the survey results. It projects the spatial data to your desired projection. It limits the data if you wish to only those records that have passed QC. And when I say it limits it, it means it's limiting the data that is downloaded. It can also limit that according to created on or edited date. It also creates an observations config file, and that's so that all of these inputs are saved so that you have that as reference for the next time you run it, because you'll probably want to change the dates according to when you ran it last so that you're not downloading the same data multiple times. And then finally, it auto-generates specimen labels. We learned about this from the Carnegie Museum when we were there in Pittsburgh. And they had this really cool thing that they were doing by putting a QR code on their specimen labels. And I had to steal that because that was just way too cool. So if you click on the QR code, so the specimen label auto-generates with that QR code, and that QR code goes to that full survey record. So not only do you get all of the data associated with that observation, which is way more informative than the small amount of information that is limited on a specimen label, but then you also get those color photographs, because we all know that specimens fade over time, and so you really lose that bright and brilliant coloring. So if you're interested, we have a number of different resources out there. All of this is available to the public. So if you would like to access any of this, we will be sharing the presentation afterwards so that you can have access to these resource links. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Amanda.
Thank you, Whitney. So we'd like to end with just bringing this full circle back to how NatureServe botanists use this type of data to assess the extinction risk of species.
It doesn't want to behave. There we go.
So reviewing a species conservation status or extinction risk follows 4 general steps. We research and collect data. We apply the data to determine rarity, threats, and trends. We review and revise our work and publish it. And I just want to highlight a couple places where on-the-ground fieldwork and surveys come into play. So the first step that we usually engage with is compiling data from a variety of sources. So that could be our network's occurrence data set, which is collected using tools like Whitney demonstrated. It could be from community science data sets like iNaturalist, or from specimen data through portals like Symbiota. We blend this locality data and their attributes, next slide, and associated information. So all of the things that go into that survey that Whitney was demonstrating, We blend that with research and expert input on everything from taxonomy to reproductive biology to describe rarity, threats, and trends to a species. And in the process, we consider 10 different factors to describe the extinction risk of a species. Some of these are determined through spatial calculations of native extant occurrences, but others like threats, population size, number of occurrences with good viability, and trends. These are often answered using data collected during the survey process. So for example, when we do a threats analysis, we go in and look at the threats that are recorded at each individual location to determine some of the major threats that are relevant to that species across its range. And I'm just going to highlight a few of those factors that are derived from spatial calculations. And we have a tool that we use to assist with this process. It's called RareCat. It helps us to compile observation data of all kinds through GBIF or other user-compiled data from some of the sources I mentioned. And it calculates 3 rarity factors, which are range, extent, area of occupancy, and number of occurrences. And all 3 of these go into both NatureServe assessments or a red list assessment. So the first metric, range extent, is simply the area of a polygon that is drawn around extant occurrences. And this measures the spatial spread of the species range and also signifies the inherent risk of a species to threats. So something that occurs at only one location is highly at risk to any one threatening event or threat event, as opposed to a species with a wider distribution where individual threat events are dispersed across its range. So paired with range extent are area of occupancy and number of occurrences. These are 2 different summaries that describe how rare a species is within its larger distribution. So something could be wide-ranging, but very rare or uncommon within its larger distribution. So to understand these basic metrics, we need data to make it into the right places. And helping, and Whitney's tools have described how to facilitate the movement of data from a person into our systems. And we can't know or incorporate this information into our assessment process if it's hanging out on someone's hard drive or just in a field notebook. So it's a very important part of our process. Okay, so in summary, on-the-ground localized work is the foundation for subnational or global ranks. And looking across large groups of species that have these assessments completed allows us to prioritize which species need continual survey, which ones need conservation action, both in situ and ex situ. And as new information is reported from the ground up, the subnational and global ranks are refined, and thus species might be reprioritized for action as needed. Our system at NatureServe is built to support this continual flow of knowledge and kind of the QCing of subnational data against global data. And we share these assessments to benefit others as well in the community. So we have 2 public portals, NatureServe Explorer and Explorer Pro for exploring species and ecosystem data. NatureServe Explorer is the primary way for the public to access conservation status information for over 100,000 species and ecosystems tracked by NatureServe and our network. You can find at this website our global ranks and the supporting information that goes into those, as well as the subnational ranks for any given taxon. And so as you can see for this map, the species is ranked S1. In all the states where it occurs, it's globally imperiled, and You can also turn on a documented distribution view to get an idea of the range of the species. From Explorer, you can use the Explorer Pro tool. This does require users to register for an account, and it provides access to enhanced mapping tools to explore species and ecosystem data. And as mentioned, every state and province has a program that maintains data on at-risk species in their jurisdiction. If you have data to share or a vision for collaboration, grab the link on the screen to find the contact information for botanists at the organizations near you. And if you're interested in just following along with NatureServe and our ongoing work, here's a selection of our social media platforms, and feel free to follow along on those. And we'd like to thank you for taking time to listen to what we do at NatureServe and some of our mapping tools, and we'd be happy to take some questions.
Laura, do you want to read some from the chat or have me kind of read some of the ones from the chat?
Yeah, I can do the chat. So thank you so much. That was great. I love ending with the how to get involved QR code. That's great. So we had several questions in the chat and some discussion going on as well. Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to unmute and ask, but he's just asking, your survey 123 was really complex. He's asking, does it write 3 individual services for the geometry types that you were creating? In the edit, there was like the line and the polygon and points.
Yes. So hold on. I have to move, and I'm showing the wrong thing, and I might not. It kicked me out of. Yeah, it kicked me out because I logged into different organizations, and that's not where I want to go. I can show you that. I think that's one of the things that I linked maybe was explaining the observation feature layer. Because we are collecting points, lines, and polygons within the same survey, we have to do so via a repeat. That's, the bastardization I was talking about. And so if we look at that feature layer, we'll see that there's the main layer, which is the observations layer, and then we have these 3 sublayers. So all of the data is actually found within the main layer, which is the observations layer. And then within the sublayers, the only thing that's actually recorded, and come on, show us some data, or maybe there isn't any. This has just been using, this fungal observation survey is still in development, so they've just been testing with it. But so all of the data is within this observations layer. The spatial locations are actually found within point, poly, and line sublayers. And within the sublayers, the only thing that you have is the parent global ID, which relates it back to that observation record, and then the location itself. So, then you're like, oh, well, that's not very helpful. It has no data. Well, what we do then is we create a view layer so that we join all of the data from the observation layer to the spatial layer, the point, line, and polygon sublayers, so that they also contain that information. And if I went over someplace else, we can see that when I was showing you the dashboard, I was showing you West Virginia, and that's because West Virginia actually has data in it because we were doing that training over in West Virginia. So if we go down to the West Virginia survey, if I know my alphabet, come on, get down there. then you'll see that I have these other view layers, the line, polygon, and point. And so those are view layers that have joined all of that tabular data to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I was curious to see how it was configured on the back end, but this makes perfect sense. This is really, really incredible.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I hadn't seen the chats before. So yeah, please keep telling me the questions because I did not see those.
No, that's fine. Jenna had a follow-up question. I'll just go ahead and read it for you, Jenna.
Oh, wait. Veronica's had her hand up for a bit.
Oh, okay. Go, Veronica.
Hello. Do I have my hand up? I'm so sorry. I meant to clap. I think I hit the wrong thing there. Okay, but I do have a question. First of all, just like these apps are so beautiful. I'm hugely impressed and excited to see this presentation. I'm, multitasking, putting together a GIS dev presentation, and it just made me curious. What is the tech stack for NatureServe's GIS applications? Are you using ArcGIS Online? I know you're using ArcGIS Online, or you're also using ArcGIS Enterprise. Where do the apps fall on the spectrum of no code to high code? How many GIS devs, or is it just Whitney? I don't know. And if so, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna explode here. But yeah, so what does it look like behind the scenes to support all of this GIS development?
So this was all built in Survey 123 using Survey 123 Connect. I don't know how familiar you are with Survey 123, but they have a really nice web designer that is great if you don't want anything too complex. And of course, Survey 123 is constantly they're constantly updating it, so that web designer is getting more powerful. But if you want anything complex, it really is done via Survey 123 Connect. So this was built via Survey 123 Connect. And it's done, if you're not familiar with Survey 123 Connect, it's all done with Excel spreadsheets in the back end. And so basically to share this observation survey with you, or the fungal observation survey with you, all I have to do is share this spreadsheet, and then you guys can import the spreadsheet and publish it on your own and use it on your own, which is why we have so many of these tools that are available to other people. One of the links that I provided had a link with the observation survey spreadsheet in it, as well as our documentation that tells you how to build it, how to build the dashboards, etc. I have everything that I develop in AGOL. And the reason for that is because I'm building all of these for our network. And so I then make them public so that, I share with everyone so that they can go out and test the observation survey that I customize for them. They can test it. When they have decided, hey, this is great, this is what I want, then I clone it over to their AGOL or their portal so that they then can administer it, manage it, configure it, etc. I do it in AGOL. I just did this for Ohio. They have their survey in AGOL, but they had me develop their dashboards in Portal because they wanted the dashboards more private. But all of that can be controlled with sharing as well. And so, one of the reasons why we have those 3 different dashboards is because they should be shared to different user groups. And then the final piece of the puzzle, and I don't think I have a good one open right now to show you, but within ArcGIS Pro, I developed the different toolboxes, the one I mentioned to you guys, and this is just a single tool built on Python in ArcGIS Pro that does all of those things that I told you, that I mentioned. It downloads, it projects, it creates those specimen labels, etc. But that's basically for our partners. So we have a big, we do a lot of work with the Bureau of Land Management. So that's how they download the data, and then they provide it, they download it for their own use, but then provide it to the Heritage Program. The Heritage Program, I have a different toolbox for the Heritage programs, which basically really facilitates getting the data from Survey 123, running it through a bunch of different processes, and then uploading it, bulk uploading it into our other system called Biotics so that we can develop our other products.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was an awesome insight. And I have to share, share that I fully support using ArcGIS Online for as much as possible, and wish that we could maybe move away from using Portal ArcGIS Enterprise. So, yeah.
I will, so in terms of low code versus no code, the only thing that is coded are those toolboxes that I developed. But if you, I can show you kind of the spreadsheet behind this fungal observations. It is, you know, long and complex, and you can get really, this is, you know, another strength of Survey 123 versus field maps, is that Survey 123, you can build in way more logic and calculation and automation on the back end. So, you know, this kind of could, people might think of this as coding versus the Survey 123 web designer.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your questions?
Yes. Yeah, that was a great insight. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that answered most of my questions as well. I guess with the dashboard, my last question was, you mentioned low code. Did you use some of the widgets for some of those dashboards? Like, did you just go into the dashboard creator, or did you guys use Arcade?
No, this is for these three dashboards, I used all just out of the box. I did no coding for these. With some of our other dashboards used internally, I'm using Arcade, but no, for this is all just done with the out of the box widgets.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Now, the one thing I would say is in our QC one, and it keeps giving me that error because I was logged into somebody else. We used a batch edit tool that was part of the web mapping application. And you guys might be familiar, web mapping application is extinct. It's being moved to Experience Builder. I don't know if they have the batch edit available yet in Experience Builder, but that is something that if you actually had the web mapping application at one point, you can still use this tool. And so I still use it in these dashboards, but not all programs had it, so I can't pass it on to them if they didn't have it previously. We'll eventually probably integrate the one from Experience Builder just so we can get that batch edit option back again.
Great. I have another question from Kaylee Walters. She said, is there any potential to add iNaturalist data to this?
Yes. So we actually have like 8 gazillion different training things. And one of the training webinars that we gave was basically taking external data, basically importing external data from, you know, the data source into the observation survey. I can't, let's see. Oh, here it is. Add data from an external data set to the observation survey in AGOL. And I may have used iNaturalist data here as my example. I can't remember. But yeah, that's something that we recognize is very important because, we get a lot of data from partners. And so but we want to have all of the data in a single database, right? We don't want to have a bunch of different data sources. And by loading the data into the observation survey, then we can use the dashboard to QC it. We can use those toolboxes to run all of those processes. And so, yes, we do import external data sets into the observation survey, and we reflect that with two different fields, a data set field and then a global ID field, not the normal global ID field, but another one, so that we can crosswalk the data back to that original data set.
Fantastic. That is a lot of training material.
This
Well
is
done.
over years and years and years. Yeah.
Looks like, Veronica, did you say that they have implemented batch editing, or it's coming?
Yeah, that was like one of the claps at the conference, but I think they were saying it's coming later this year. It's in beta and it's coming later this year for Experience Builder in ArcGIS Online, but then it's coming even later for Portal as usual.
Of course. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's out there yet. Though
Yeah,
batch editing, yeah,
that was the last thing I had heard too.
yeah. But batch editing, I'm so excited because when I was working at Desert Botanical Garden on Collector Field Maps, what's now Field Maps app, man, it would have been great to be able to do a little bit of batch editing in the Collector app back then. So I'm pretty excited that that's coming out. Hopefully, actually, I was curious, is that coming out in Field Maps app at all? Can we sort of batch delete instead of just like one-off deleting each plant from our maps or setting them to,
I have not looked into batch delete.
I'm
for
fairly certain it's
field.
supposed to come within the calendar year.
Cool. Yeah, I
I
think
feel
that'll
like that
help.
was a topic of conversation even this year from the Field Maps team.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I'd,
think that's a big development. Yeah.
I'd imagine you could manually brute force it through ArcGIS Pro and some attribute tables. It's probably not ideal.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But like when you're out in the field inventorying, I often
Oh, yeah.
found that, yeah, it would have been nice to do uh, several plants instead of just, clicking on one plant at a time. It depends on what your workflow is for plant inventory, but my old workflow at least could have really benefited from batch editing in the field.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if anyone has any, please unmute yourself and ask. We have a few more minutes left. And I'm just looking in a field map that I made just now. You can batch edit, but you can't necessarily delete.
I'd have to look in the settings of the web map or the field map settings and see if that's even an option you can check. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I usually don't want people deleting things in the field for my workflows.
So I do see one more question. Can the markup layer be pulled into ArcGIS Pro as a feature service, or does it only live in the ArcGIS map? What do you mean by the markup layer?
Oh, it could be that you've answered it when you showed us the back end as sublayers. I know in field maps we have something called markup layer, and just how you drew that art, the heart, I mean, it's called a
Ugh.
markup for us. So that I was just using the wrong terminology, but I think you got us covered on that.
Yeah, and all of those can be used in Pro. Yep.
Awesome. Well, keep your questions coming. I've shared the last 3 slides for our kind of end of business. So if you're interested in tea time and such, or share with a friend, take a look.
I can stop sharing. There you go.
Oh, no problem. I'll go ahead and share the slide. Can you all see that?
Mhm.
Okay. I don't see any more hands up, so our next scheduled meeting date would be September 25th for a tea time. It's very casual, non-recorded. October 9th, we have our quarterly, and then we have conference session proposals due for October 2026. Is that right, Laura?
I'll say yes. I haven't looked at the exact date, but it's usually like Halloween-ish when it's due.
Okay, so keep
John, do you know? You're on the call.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
oops,
To be announced later.
awesome. So keep those ideas coming. Let's see if I can get the next slide. Last Thursday of the month, we try to run the tea times. If they get canceled, we send a cancellation, but they've gone pretty well. It's usually about a dozen people, and all kinds of things are chatted. And invite a friend. If you thought this content was something someone you know or a colleague would love, please share. We do try to record these and make them available, but it's also great to have live discussion. And I want to thank, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm getting an error message. I tried to scan the QR code, and I'm looking for a way to actually invite friends to join the Google group. Is that what the QR code was?
Yes, then I'll put the link in the chat. So it's as simple as just following the link and then ask to join group.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No problem. And I want to thank our guests again. Thank you. That was a wonderful talk and a lot of resources to unpack. I look forward to it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you all next tea time. Thanks
Wonderful.
again, Amanda and Whitney.
Bye. Thank you.
Y'all have a great week.
You
Have a
too.
great week.
Thank you.